deployments, strategies, policies, procedures, and practices for the purpose of addressing the particular needs of the community served,
and promoting community engagement to foster trust, fairness, and legitimacy. Stakeholders, including but not limited to membership and leadership of the local police force, members of the community, interested nonprofit and faith-based community groups, the local office of the district attorney, the local public defender, and local elected officials shall be consulted. Members of identified stakeholder groups have been identified and have had an opportunity to speak to the compliance group for 3 minutes each. Members of the public are invited to call in to listen to stakeholder input on a compliance group discussion or participate in meetings via Zoom, such as the one we're having tonight. We've got another one scheduled for 6 p.m. on Thursday evening. We're also strongly encouraging the public to submit comments in a written form. There is a web page with opportunities for to complete a comprehensive survey, an abbreviated survey, and to provide feedback via email. Got a number of folks who have registered for the meeting tonight, and I'd like to begin. I have this separated by folks who are interested in just listening to what the discussion is, and also those who have registered specifically to speak. So without any further ado, I'd like to invite Rabbi Yosef to speak, and you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this nice conference.
A little trouble hearing you, Rabbi?
Okay. Is this better?
It's a little bit better, yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for coordinating this. In general, you know, Jewish life, you know, we say the law of the land is very important, but we also look at the divine soul within everyone. And so the special idea called the 7 Laws of Noah, which is like the bedrock of society of the United States as well, was founded on these values of morality. And so on one hand, one of the laws, the 7th law, is to set up courts of justice. And on the other hand, there's also the idea of looking and, you know, recognizing the divine soul and image within everyone. So so the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who's my mentor, he shared this idea of looking honoring and respecting the police and the law, at the same time creating an environment where there's not just like a judge and a policeman, but advisors and guidance counselors and people that can be like a help the police and help the people understand where they're coming from, and to really recognize the divine soul within every person. And so that is really to have that, just starting this meeting with a recognition of the law and recognition of the individual and the the innate potential within everyone, how they have potential to do good, and given a chance, but in the realm of protecting others and protecting themselves. So basically the idea of maybe more practically speaking, of having more advisors and guidance connected with the police and law enforcement, so they understand each community, their needs and their their different struggles and challenges, and help them be able to address that. And so respecting the police and law, and at the same time respecting each individual and the divine energy and soul within everyone. So that's the general idea.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Any other comments, Rabbi?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have, maybe following some other commentary, I may have more, but just that, here in Clifton Park, and I, visit many seniors, and delivering food and different things they need. And sometimes people fall between the cracks. And so people knowing that the police or the government is here to help them, and so some more, whether in every spectrum, whether the seniors or youth, that, I know they have really nice programs of for seniors, checking up on people and seeing how they're doing. And just, sometimes most of the programs are already in place, but more awareness and, more input from the community of, how you can volunteer to help. And, even the times of COVID where it's more, restricted, contact, but we can still be a lending ear and, reach out to people. So, that if the police would, I think they do have this already in place, a lot of community policing and community outreach. It just may be more awareness or more focus and more concrete, steps where that can actually be implemented.
Okay. Thank you. So just the need for people to have a better feel for the fact that law enforcement is there to provide assistance, for community engagement, community outreach, wellness checks, those kinds of things, just to be reassuring, particularly as you're mentioning the older population.
Yes, that's a great summary.
Thank you. Thanks, Rabbi.
You're welcome.
Our next speaker, I'd like to call on Timothy Flynn, please. Mr. Flynn?
I don't see him on here.
Not seeing Mr. Flynn, so maybe we can come back if he joins us after. I'm going to move ahead now to Arlo Zwicker.
I apologize. I don't have anything to add at this moment. I'm just here to listen right now.
Okay, Mr. Zwicker, thank you very much. Move on at this point to Michael Hartnett.
Did I sign up on the public?
People may have signed up to talk, to speak, just in case they were called upon to say anything, but they don't have prepared remarks. I think that might be.
Thank you, Supervisor, for reminding me. Thank you. Apologies. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Holiday Hammond.
Oh, Mr. Hartnett was on.
Not on.
He started to speak.
Okay. I'm sorry, who was it who started? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me jump back to, we're just trying to catch up and I'm trying to keep up with the tech here. Mr. Hartnett, did you wish to speak or did you sign up as a member of the group so that as we discuss things after the fact that you'd have an opportunity to be heard?
I think I may have signed up using the public link to this group. So.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Holiday Hammond is not on the call. Move ahead to Warren Dart, please. Mr. Dart, I think you're still muted.
Good evening. I just had two questions. One was, why were there no statistics provided in the survey to help answer some of the questions? And then number two, the use of tactical equipment, that wasn't provided in the Lexipol policies either. So those are right now the only two concerns that I had.
Can you hear me okay? The Sumner Sheriff Castle. So just to speak to the statistics on the survey, the survey was completed or I'm sorry, the survey was put together prior to any statistical data being collected. We're still in the process of going through and collecting data that the committee's going to use to make some of their decisions based on the type of data that would generally be necessary for this type of research. It's not data that is normally kept in the course of business of the county. So it's something that's going to be looked at by this committee as to what type of data needs to be kept in the future that could be more used for this type of assessment. Does that answer your question, sir?
Somewhat, yes.
And then as far as the Lexpol policy on, I believe you said tactical equipment. I can't speak to that directly as to whether we have a policy that specifically says that in those draft policies. I'd have to go back and look at that, but I don't believe there is a specific draft policy for tactical equipment at this time.
Okay.
Mr. Dart, are there other questions you have or other comments you'd like
Well,
to make?
yes, there's just one more. In filling out the survey, I printed off the guide that New York State provides, the New York State Police Reform Reinvention and Collaborative, and it says it's the resource guide for public officials and citizens. Is the group using that in order to help, the committee decide what policies and things that they're going to use?
I think I missed part of what you were saying. I'm sorry.
Well, what I said was, New York State put out a resource guide for public officials and citizens. And I just wondered if and it's dated August 2020, if the group is using that, in order to guide guide the group through this process.
In fact, yeah, all members of the group have had copies of that and have had a chance to review it, and we'll be incorporating that with all the other information actually that we gather from the community and particular stakeholder groups, and incorporating that into the report.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, thank you. Next up is Paul Feldman. I'm not sure if Paul is here.
I don't see him on the list.
Okay. And Pastor Sue McKenzie, I'm looking to see.
Nope.
All right, I'll open things up in a minute. I did see a comment in the checkbox about the involvement of groups, for example, MLK Saratoga and others. And in fact, there's been a fair amount of outreach, and during one of our recent meetings, I think it was our December 16th meeting, folks from that group, Saratoga Immigration Coalition, the Peace Alliance, members of those types of groups were, the Backstretching Boys group also were invited to participate. So we did try and reach out. I think maybe I can check with one of the other members of the committee to talk about the outreach that we've done. But between individuals we've contacted, we've asked for assistance from some of the community groups that have participated to further reach out to their networks. Several hundred, probably well north of 500 individuals and groups have been asked to participate in the process or offer feedback. So that was the question that I saw in the group, and I believe that you also had a question, Christine Nichols.
Yes, hi, my name is Christine Nichols. I'm actually co-chair of Saratoga Progressive Action, as well as the victims and advocacy groups in the area. I was actually the first reported rape on Skidmore campus. So I have a long history with Saratoga Police and have had some great experiences with them, and also some reported experiences that weren't so wonderful. And just going back to that question about reaching out, I'd love to see a little bit more involvement. To be honest, I found out about this at 5:45 and tried to share it to all of my people really quickly. So if you could speak maybe a little bit more to perhaps making more of an effort. I know I don't get the Saratoga newspaper. I don't know where it is you're putting out information about these types of meetings, but I know if I don't directly follow every, there's so many different departments to follow. So I think trying to do a little bit more, I think this has to be a conversation that especially incorporates BIPOC individuals. And I'd like to see some more outreach on that end. And then for all of us who might not read the same newspaper, being reached out to, we have over 250 members, and I'm sure a lot of them would have liked to be a part of the conversation. So I would just like to perhaps suggest that maybe we can do more on that arena, and I'd love to be on whatever list that finds out about these meetings, so I can make sure I can get, our participants to be able to attend.
Sure, thank you very much. We have continued to work as hard as we could to try and identify different groups and then rely on them. And thankfully, we've got some very generous offers of people to spread our information even further about the different meetings, the opportunities to provide feedback. So I can say this: if you are able to go to the county's website and check on the right-hand side, there is a link for the Executive Order 203 compliance group. There is a link there to an email address, and if you send an email with your contact information, I would be glad to send out information related to the meeting that we have coming up on Thursday evening that you can, if you're open to that, to sharing with your network.
Wonderful, I will do that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. I think Undersheriff was going to mention something else.
Christine, thank you again for participating. And just to point out, one of the things that this group has been able to do through this process is identify groups such as yours that, frankly, some of them we didn't even know existed. So this is at the end, we will have hopefully a comprehensive list of groups that we can reach out to in the future as well to continue this dialogue and as issues may come up. But thank you again for your participation and for your offer to help out.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have we've gone through our list of folks who have registered to speak. And generally what happens is when we're finished with that, then the group will have a conversation. There may be questions that members of the group have for people who have spoken up. But given the time frame, we've gone through relatively quickly. It's about 25 after 6. So there is an opportunity if there are others who might like to contribute to the conversation. We invite you to do so maybe by activating their raise hand icon if you're interested. I don't think we've got any takers on that. Let me then open up to the members of the group, both those who are present. I know Supervisor Richardson is on the phone. Supervisor O'Connor is present in the room. Vice Chair Undersheriff Castle is here. I'm here, and participating in the conversation are Opal Hines and Karen Hagan, the District Attorney, and Andrew Blumenberg, who is the Public Defender, as well as Mike Harnett, who's the group's legal advisor. What I'm hearing in the conversation tonight generally has to do with things that we've heard a little bit about before, about the efforts that we need to make for outreach. I think that a theme I hear is that being a little bit more connected with some of the work that the Sheriff's Office does. I know about some of the outreach efforts that are made that the community at large may not be aware of. I'm thinking of the Day After program that normally operates with folks who might have experienced an overdose. So there are things of that nature, I think, that we might want to look at too and put together a report for sure. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. There is, I think one of the things that is lacking, and we've noticed this, is that we've had inquiries by people of things that exist or are in place and are functioning that frankly, the public just isn't aware of. So I think it's important that we get that information out to them as part of this report and in a continuing effort after the report. As we've said, as a committee, that this report should be this report and any recommendation should be a starting point, not an end point. And that's the angle that we're going after from a committee standpoint.
Thanks, Undersheriff.
Mr. Chairman, Darren O'Connor, I'm from Malta. I'd just like to remind anyone listening in that in addition to hearing you in meetings like this, we also really appreciate written comments. I know that I spent time today reviewing written comments. You know, anything you put in is going to be examined and read. I spent some time today, for example, reading Mr. Dart's comments submitted to the group. All these comments are very helpful for us. So to the extent you can spread it around, you don't have to confine your input to answers to the survey. We're more than willing to read just emails sent to us. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Supervisor. It is important to note that the survey data is one type of data, but the narrative data that goes into an email is rich in a different way. And our goal is to incorporate all of that in the recommendations that we generate for the Board of Supervisors to consider. And I think I just want to underscore what the Undersheriff has said about the fact that the work of this group really is the beginning point. This is the data collection period, the time when we hear from others. And these recommendations are going to go into a report. We're not expecting that in the next 2.5 months, the report is everything needs to be done and the recommendations adopted by the beginning of April. We don't expect the work to be done at that point, but our recommendations to be considered by the board as kind of an action plan or a blueprint for what we do moving forward from that point on. So, we'll look to the kinds of data we need to continue to collect and engage the community in different ways to make sure that what we offer to the board is as comprehensive as we can make it so that they have the best menu of options to deliberate on as they come to their decisions. Yes, sir, Mr. Zwicker.
Yes, hi. I'm wondering, to the committee, I understand this is just the data collection process, and you haven't, come to any conclusions yet. But like, how are you feeling in this data collection process? I'm wondering what you have found so far, and as of right now, what are do you have any potential action plans, or are you not at that stage yet?
I'll invite other members of the group to participate, but for me, I think what we've done is identify issues. So communication is an issue, education is an issue, and that's a two-way street. That involves making sure the community knows the kinds of things that are going on, but also hearing from the community about what it is that's in place. That's a big part of it. There have been discussions about the use of body cameras. It was, that's been a topic that we've talked about. There have been issues related to training and what type of training, about what, by who, because that all is something that's in the mix. So it's those kinds of issues and that jump to the fore in my mind, but I'll ask any other members of the group who may want to add to that. I think roughly speaking, that captures much of what we're hearing as far as actionable issues. Yeah, thank you for the question.
I am curious if any other members of the committee have anything to say, but thank you very much for answering.
Chairman Prezioso.
DA Hagan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Zwicker, for your questions and your comments. This process is one that I think has enlightened all of us on the committee about the innumerable talents and positive things we have in the community. And yet at the same time, there's room for significant improvement and dialogue and discussion. And as Dr. Prezioso has mentioned, part of what we have discussed both with participants at other meetings and amongst ourselves kind of at the comings and goings of meetings, is that, you know, this is a starting point, that this is not meant to be identify all of the issues and concerns, write a report, submit it, and be done. And I think even the questions and the commentary today, as it relates to involvement of other entities and organizations and people with diverse perspectives, is something that I'll speak for myself, although I believe my fellow committee members feel the same way. I've come to really appreciate is that the investment that people have in our community, that they care about and they want to be a part of this, what I foresee being very much an ongoing and living conversation and document, is very affirming. That doesn't mean that we've got everything all lined up, that we've got all kinds of recommendations and we're all set with the fact that we've got everything all mapped out. I think what I've been feeling is that what we have is a good start. But just even some of the correspondence we received today, Supervisor O'Connor mentioned some correspondence we received from Mr. Dart today. I too also spent some time with that and truly appreciated his willingness and dedication to diving deep into some specific topics and issues and pointing out the uniqueness of language and how the turn of a phrase or the use of a word or not of a word when it came to things like use of deadly physical force and tactical use of force and those types of things, how that evolution of the use of those types of things occur in the course of the criminal justice system in our everyday lives, and how different people come with different perspectives regarding that. I don't think that any of us believe we are here to write everything as it relates to the Saratoga County Sheriff's Department in our report and changes everything at once. First and foremost, these are recommendations to the Sheriff's Department, who really have been very open and desirous of gathering feedback and input. And I think that the document that we start with will not be the document that in a year from now, people look at and say, oh, they got it done, they finished on time. I see the evolution of this as ongoing, and all of you participating today is a heartening thing for me to see, that we can continue to see our community wanting to and being engaged in these conversations.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, if I could just add to DA Hagan's remarks, and yes, I totally agree with them. And the answer, do we have an action plan yet, or at least do I? And the answer is plainly no, we don't. But an adjunct to that answer is we didn't approach this task with any kind of a preconceived notion. What we wanted to do was hear from the people and form an action plan after we gathered those remarks. One of the comments at the beginning of this meeting from the rabbi was particularly enlightening, I think, talking about viewing things from the perception of the struggles that individual residents go through. That's basically what I think this group is trying to do. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Supervisor. I think there's been some discussion in the chat about use of the investment in resources, in tactical resources. I think a couple of the examples cited were everything from horses to riot gear to maybe even the AMRAP, things of that nature. And, from my vantage point, my day job is Director of Mental Health and Addictions. I think that where resources are placed certainly matters, but I also think that in keeping with the idea that we understand that there are multiple perspectives on what the investment of resources can be and should be, I think it's a valid question and something for the group to continue to discuss. And it is something that's it's come up numbers of time. And I know that there's mischaracterizations of some equipment. I've seen, I think, a couple of folks, or at least one person in the chat here in previous meetings refer to one of the sheriff's office vehicles as a tank. I think, as we strive to gain better understanding, it'd be useful for us all to be able to understand the concerns when such kind of equipment is used, and at the same time understand that there may be occasions that warrant the use of that kind of equipment. So I think that there's multiple perspectives to be heard from where that's concerned. Are there other questions or comments that people would like to offer? Okay, going once, going twice. Going 3 times. Listen, I'd like to acknowledge and express my appreciation for the fact that folks have taken the time to participate in the process and help us hopefully develop a product that will move things forward and make things just better all the way around. We're all in this together. We need to bring our expertise and our experience to it, and all parties need to be heard from and put on the table so we can develop a report for the board really to consider thoroughly based on the input of the people who are living it. So I just want to thank you all again. And I look forward to hearing or seeing more comments through the email, through the link on the county's website, or survey responses. Please encourage those folks you know. Please share with your networks. The website also encourage them to participate, because the more information we have, I think one of the other themes I guess I should touch on is that we've been talking about how you don't know what you don't know. So we need to hear from you. So with that, I want to say thank you, and thank you to the members of the group.
Doctor,
Yes, ma'am.
Christine has her hand raised. Nichols,
Oh.
want to acknowledge her?
Okay, yes.
Sorry, I did have one last question with your going once, going twice. I figured I'd get it in since I have some of the people I'd like to talk to about it on the call. One of my other, in my other job, I work with domestic violence and rape survivors. I'm a domestic violence and rape survivor myself. And I know up here we have I work in Warren, Washington, and Saratoga counties. And I know our sentencing is just so all over the place, where we see convictions and prison terms being given to drug sentencing convictions and not to rape and abuse convictions. And I'm wondering if possibly the public defender or prosecutor would like to speak to how we could involve more possibly the survivors or those advocacy groups going forward, because I feel like that sentencing sends a message to survivors and future survivors and perpetrators, where our allegiances lie and what we prioritize in the criminal justice system.
Thank you for the question. A little off the field of the reforming mandate we have from the governor here, but I can say from the perspective of my office, I am fortunate that I have resources in my office with 3 full-time crime victim specialists who work collaboratively daily with victims of all kinds of crimes, particularly with those related to physical encounters with individuals, whether they are assaults or rapes or other types of issues. Unfortunately, we've seen an uptick in this last year of domestic violence cases, and my staff has been working diligently on those. We collaborate regularly with Wellspring here in Saratoga Springs. And I don't know if that's the organization that you're connected with, Ms. Nichols, or not. We also collaborate regularly with Mechanicville Community Center, which supports victims of domestic violence and sexual assault cases. It's very difficult to offer just a blanket kind of commentary about sentencings of certain types of cases, because each individual case is handled based on the unique facts and circumstances of its case, the strength of a case or not, which is weighed in many different ways, not just as it relates to proof, but the issues and concerns of the victims of the crimes, the community as a whole, are all weighed when it comes to proposed dispositions. If the case is tried, the sentence is, of course, always determined by the judge, but the majority of our cases here in the county, and I think Mr. Blumenberg would agree, we do reach a resolution that we propose to the court through means of plea bargaining. And our goal is always to seek justice, which means we're looking at all involved in the criminal justice system. It's not just one particular entity that we're trying to advocate on behalf of. So from my office, we look to seek justice for the victims of crime. We look to seek justice for the community as a whole. And justice also includes justice for the perpetrator or the defendant who is the person that the case is focused on. Holding that person accountable and responsible comes in many different forms and in many different ways. So it's not a one size fits all, nor do we have kind of a standard disposition when it comes to any particular case or charge. And I don't know that it's addressing your issue or concern, but we always in my office welcome others who are looking to be involved or to assist with victims of crime. It is one of the mainstays of what we do each day.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Should we try going once, going twice again? Mr. Zwicker's got his hand up. Yep.
Yes. Dr. Prezioso, I'm wondering, as a I would assume you understand the mental health situation in our county and in our community. And do you feel that there's enough funding and enough resources are allocated to mental health support in our communities? And also, I'm wondering if how you view drug possession and addiction. Do you see it as a criminal issue or a mental health issue?
Okay. Again, not quite what our mandate is, so I'll touch on it briefly. I as a department head would never suggest that we have enough funding to do the things that we need to do. We are able to provide something on the order of 100 services a day. This is our pre-COVID numbers up at the mental health and addictions building on South Broadway. So we are doing a considerable number of services, but there is always a need for more. One of the things that we've seen with COVID is the advent of telehealth. So that may hold out some options for us. We have applied for licensure, and we've got that added both through the Office of Mental Health and the Office of Addictions and Supports and Services. So we've got those options open to us also. So we'll see where that takes us. I think that the pandemic, once that has resolved, has opened up new possibilities as far as treatment options for people. Whether or not, and here I'm not going to be expressing the county's position. I'm not in a position to do that. I will express my position as having been in the field for 30, 35 years. I think there are some times when there are criminal issues, and I think that there are times when a medical condition beyond a person's control leads them to do things which are ultimately also criminal, but not necessarily at the root. So I'm trying to split the baby here and say that yes, some of both, but that's my personal, my professional opinion. That's not my sort of county position.
Okay, thank you for answering.
And I'll just to speak a little bit to the sheriff's office, because a lot of people are not familiar with this. So I understand your question, your concerns. Where we stand as a law enforcement agency, Saratoga County Sheriff's Office has been very proactive in this region as far as dealing with addiction services. We were very early adopters of a Narcan program. We have every one of our deputies and investigators on the street is equipped with Narcan. We actually were equipped with Narcan, I believe, in 2015. We went 17 months, I believe was the number, from when we issued Narcan to everybody till the first time we used it. And within 6 months of our first use, we went to where we were using it almost on a daily basis. We expanded on that by creating an after action plan where we actually have a member of the sheriff's office who goes back out the next day to speak with people that we respond to as overdose calls, to let them know what services are available to them, to assist them with getting into treatment, direct them to the right services. So as Dr. Prezioso says, I believe there is a difference between addiction and recreational use. There is a difference between possession and dealing, and it is a fine line that we have to walk in law enforcement because we do want to help the people that need help, but we also need to enforce the laws that exist in the books for those types of things. So thank you for your question.
And I would, coming from my original question, I would like to make one suggestion to the committee, and that is potentially, deallocating some of the resources from our county sheriff's department and investing in more mental health and social programs. Because I'm wondering how essential it is to have a militarized sheriff's department while having underfunded mental health and, a lot of other social programs within our county.
I do think that the resource allocation has come up in various forms with various sort of recommendations, and what you're suggesting is not the first time that we've heard that. It's interesting, and again, this is my perspective, but I think sort of operationally how I try and operate the department. We too have something of a public safety function. If we can provide treatment to people who might be at risk to themselves or others, for example, or engaging in behavior that maybe is not helpful to themselves or the community in various ways. We've had the opportunity to partner, with the sheriff's office in numbers of ways. We've deployed social workers to the correctional facility. We collaborate on at various points in time, barricade situations, higher risk situations. So, the kinds of treatment that we can offer will really just require some additional staffing that can be bridged by telehealth in many ways. But I very much appreciate, even as the director of mental health, appreciate the public safety function of the sheriff's office. And we will need to include the concerns of the community based on resource allocation that's come up, in your question now and what's come up before.
Thank you.
And we've also dealt with the question that has come up. You mentioned taking funding away from the sheriff's office, but rather one of the things we're looking at is, are there functions that are being performed by not just the sheriff's office, by law enforcement in general, including the state police, that would be better performed by other groups, and how do we make that transition? Even Saratoga Springs is dealing with this in their question. Should the city police department be dealing with the homeless population when the complaint is strictly of homelessness, as opposed to some outside group dealing with that? So those are the kind of things that we're looking at as well within this group and within the sheriff's office. So the defund the police moniker is kind of a misnomer. I know for some people that is exactly what they mean, but for others it's really just a matter of are the right resources being placed in the right place. And in a community like Saratoga County, where we are very fortunate, socially and economically, are we doing everything that we can afford to do that needs to be done? So that's something that needs to be looked at on all levels.
Thank you.
Question. Anyone else? All right, well, listen, I do want to thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it. I look forward, Ms. Nichols, to getting an email from you tomorrow so that we can connect about getting those resources, the information out to your network. And other folks, please feel free to continue to provide feedback through the website. We look forward to hearing from you all and appreciate your time tonight. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Take care.